The Garden of Echoed Truths. In the quiet village of Elmwood, nestled in a valley where the mist clung to the hills like cobwebs, people did not speak of their shames, their sorrows, or their secret fears. Instead, they practiced an old, quiet magic. They buried them. It was a simple, somber ritual. After dusk, when the world was painted in hues of indigo and silver, one would steal into their kitchen garden, dig a small, earnest hole, and whisper a truth too heavy to carry into the waiting earth. A locket of lost love was interred beneath the white roses. A broken promise, wrapped in birch bark, was tucked beside the parsley. The sharp memory of a cowardly moment was pressed deep near the root of the old oak. The soil of Elmwood was rich with unspoken words. Lyra's secret was not an object, but a sound, the last, gasping rattle of her grandfather's breath as he slipped from the world. It had followed her from the stillness of his room, a spectral echo that lodged in the hollow of her throat and vibrated in her bones with every heartbeat. For weeks, she carried it, until the weight threatened to pull her through the very floorboards of her home. One moonless night, the silence in her own chest became unbearable. She crept out, the cold grass kissing her bare feet, and knelt by the patch of withered lavender her grandfather had planted. With trembling fingers, she dug. She leaned close, her lips almost touching the cool, dark soil, and whispered the terrible, intimate sound into the ground. She covered it over, patting the earth flat as if making a bed for a nightmare. The next morning, a silver shoot, sharp as a needle, pierced the exact spot. It grew with a speed that stole the breath from one's lungs. By midday, it was a wand. By sunset, it was a sapling with bark like polished pewter, and leaves that were not leaves at all, but delicate, metallic scales that chimed together in the slightest breeze, playing a faint, familiar melody. The village gathered, a murmur of unease rippling through them. Then old man Higgins gave a strangled cry and pointed to his potato patch. A thick, thorny vine, the color of dried blood, had erupted, its central bulb pulsing with a slow, rhythmic beat. He had buried his cowardice from the Battle of Grey Moor there 50 years prior. Widow Cleary's plot now sprouted a bush of glassy, translucent berries, and within each berry, minuscule faces formed and dissolved, mouthing silent, frantic words, the gossip she'd sworn never to repeat. They had unwittingly planted a garden of echoes. Every buried truth had taken root, watered by secrecy and shame, and had grown into a magical, often monstrous, reflection of itself. A buried jealousy became a plant that dripped corrosive sap. A hidden kindness sprouted into flowers that glowed with a soft, warm light. But Lyra's tree was the most breathtaking and the most sorrowful. Its chiming leaves played a perfect, haunting rendition of her grandfather's favorite lullaby, the Song of the Evening Star. The sound was so beautiful it brought tears to the eyes. Yet, from its intricate, silver roots, a creeping gray moss began to spread. Where it touched, color drained from the other plants, the glowing flowers dimmed, the pulsing vine grew sluggish. This was no ordinary moss. It was the physical form of stifled grief, and it was starving the garden of all other emotions. Her unprocessed sorrow was consuming the magic around it. The village splintered. A faction, led by the fearful blacksmith, argued for axes and fire. "Chop them down, salt the earth," he roared. "We must rebury this magic before it consumes us." Others, like the curious apothecary, were mesmerized. "Look at the wonders," she pleaded, cratering a glowing flower. "We can learn from them." But as the gray moss spread, the garden grew volatile. The thorn vines lashed out like whips, the gossip berries began to emit a low, psychic shriek that gave everyone headaches. Lira knew, with a certainty that sat in her stomach like a stone, that this was her doing. She hadn't just buried a sound. She had interred the entire, tangled knot of feeling that came with it. The unsaid goodbye, the guilt of relief when his suffering ended, the vast, echoing love that now had no home. One evening, as the lullaby chimed its mournful tune, she did not shut her window. She walked into the garden, past the frightened villagers, and sat directly beneath the silver branches. She let the sound wash over her. And then, she began to speak. Not to the tree, but to the memory it represented. She told her grandfather about the blackbird that nested in the eaves, about how she'd finally mastered the stew recipe, about her fear of forgetting the sound of his laughter. She wept, great heaving sobs that she had held back for months. She spoke of her love, a love that felt lost and anchorless. As she spoke, a change shuddered through the tree. The chiming softened, harmonizing with her voice. High up, a bud swelled, then burst open. From it grew a single fruit, perfect and round, glowing with a soft, internal light like a captured moon. It was warm and hummed gently when she plucked it. She did not bury it. She held it to her chest, where the echo had once lived. The effect was immediate. The gray moss halted its advance. Then, as if hearing a new command, it began to shrivel and recede. And where it pulled back, a second miracle occurred. The vicious, blood-red thorns sprouted clusters of delicate blue forget-me-nots. The shrieking gossip berries softened, their glassy skins melting into sweet, silent juice that tasted of forgiveness. The corrosive jealousy plant began to bloom with iridescent butterflies. Lira understood the true magic. A secret buried to fester, to be forgotten, becomes a poison. It grows wild and distorted. But a truth held in the heart's open hand, acknowledged, spoken aloud to the light of day or the comfort of the night, that truth becomes a different kind of seed. It becomes wisdom, compassion, resilience. She became the garden's tender. She taught the others not to exhume their pasts, but to tend to them. Old Man Higgins sat by his thorn vine and spoke, for the first time, of the boy he couldn't save. The thorns retracted, and the beating bulb unfurled into a majestic, scarlet poppy. The garden transformed from a haunted grove into a place of stunning, surreal beauty, a living tapestry of the village's collective heart, where history grew not in shame, but in strange, splendid splendor. And at its center, Lira's silver tree stood, its leaves chiming the gentle lullaby. The sound was no longer a trapped echo of grief, but a melody of peaceful, everlasting memory, a song that now held both the loss and the love, woven together into something strong enough to bear the weight of the sky.